Good afternoon to the young NEET aspirants. So we are in the second class of the chapter Chemical Coordination and Integration. We studied the first half of the endocrine system. Next, we will study the next half of the endocrine system. I'll be detailing you with some more endocrine glands. Then we'll wrap it up saying that how chemically are the hormones made and how are their action into the cell. So by this time, are you appreciating the role of these endocrine glands sitting into us? That is from the brain, okay, to the thoracic area. I mean to say the respiratory system. We have the thyroid gland, then extending towards it, we get inside the abdomen. So today I'm going to focus onto the glands which is sitting on right on our abdomen and then reaching to the gonads. That's nothing but the reproductive structures. And we'll talk about testis and ovary. Let's make it much more interesting. As I said in your previous class, not as a warning, but as a guideline, please sit with a paper and a pen. Keep noting down the endocrine glands we are talking about, their function, the hormone they are releasing, okay? Then some of the important aspects of each of the glands, so that, as I said, this is a memory-based chapter. So you memorize each and every gland and each and every hormone, and this will also help you to answer some of the CPP question which we will be shooting for the passport users. Recap of the previous class. We did an introduction to hormones. We told hormone is a masterpiece. So what is the mega thing which we are talking about? The mega point in our body, or a mega organ in our body, is brain. Hormones is called as the masterpiece because it is going to help us enter into each stage of life. That's nothing but getting into youth, then getting into the puberty. I mean to say we have the initial stages of where we're an infant. Then from infant we get inside the youth age, that is nothing but the puberty. Then we reproduce. Then after reproduction we lead to a maturity. After maturity we lead to old age. So all these changes within us is brought by a couple of hormones. Then we studied about the endocrine system. What is the definition of endocrine system? And the first 6 endocrine glands: the hypothalamus, which is sitting in our brain, the pituitary gland, which is connected to the hypothalamus, the pineal gland, which is sitting in the dorsal side of the brain. Then we started studying about thyroid gland, the highest important, if you see it in terms of seeing the growth of the infant into I mean to say the growth of fetus into a woman who is pregnant. Okay, this thyroid gland plays a many role in terms of you being obese or you being weak or becoming lean. So the next more gland we talked about was parathyroid gland. The calcium level in your body is being maintained by this specific gland. Then we talked about thymus. Okay, goals of the class, what are we going to nail today? As I said, the second set of the endocrine glands we'll be discussing. So we'll be starting with adrenal gland, pancreas. That's the right away focus inside our abdomen. Testis, ovary, the gonads, the male and female gonad respectively. Then the non-endocrine glands. So are there any other glands which is releasing hormones other than the endocrine glands? We'll talk about that also. Then we are going to talk mechanism of hormone action. So it's not enough that the hormone is released, okay, into the field of war. It has to go attack, okay, it has to go attack the the opposition side. I'm not getting a war field scene here, but I'm saying that how hormones are going to reach its target site, okay, and bring about the changes, something we call it as the physiological action or the physiological activity within our body. At the end, we're going to wrap up with the chemical categories of hormones. Are hormones only proteins? We'll talk about it. Are they only proteins? Think about it. Okay. The first gland of today's class, adrenal gland. Location, adrenal gland is sitting right on top of our kidney. Okay, where is kidney placed, right? It's inside our abdomen. So the adrenal gland sit on the anterior part of each kidney. Okay. Now, anatomy wise, if you go into the details, we have studied into the excretory chapter, but we'll just pick up 2 structures there. Okay, I'll just draw, but you can see the image which I have pasted here. I'll just use the laser pointer. So this is the adrenal gland which is sitting right on our kidneys. So that's why it's been named as right adrenal gland and left adrenal gland. Okay. Now, when you see the anatomy of the adrenal gland, it has an outer, the peripheral adrenal cortex, and at the center it has adrenal medulla. Now, there are set of hormones which has been secreted by adrenal medulla and adrenal cortex. We'll keep account of it. And once again, I would like to say that we are talking about endocrine glands. That means the ductless gland. So there's no ducts here. Whatever hormones has been released, it is released and it is going to reach inside the blood. And through the blood, the hormones are going to reach the target site. Okay, kids. So adrenal medulla is going to secrete a set of hormones which is called as catecholamines. These are called as catecholamines. These are amines based derivative kind of hormones. What are they? Adrenaline, okay, or these are also called as epinephrine. Epinephrine or any of the the hormones, these two hormones which has been secreted by adrenal medulla is an amino acid derivative. Okay, it's an amino acid derivative. That's why these hormones are also called as amino acid derivative kind of hormones. Okay, this will help you keep a note when we'll talk about categories of hormones. There we'll list down that what are the types of amino acid derivative. And the first one we talked about adrenaline. I'll tell you what is the role, okay, what is the function of adrenaline. It is of, this hormone is depicted much in the movies if you see. How is it? Keep in tune with me, I'll tell you in a while. So the second one is noradrenaline. Simpler to name it. The previous one are epinephrine. So this is gonna be norepinephrine. It's just another name given to it. I'm just telling here so that in your exam, if they ask you what are the function of epinephrine or what are the function of norepinephrine, you shouldn't get confused. These are the other names of adrenaline or the noradrenaline respectively. Okay. So we'll discuss about the function. Adrenaline and noradrenaline, I'm just going to write, but before that I'll just give you this picturization. These are the nothing but emergency hormones, the fight or flight hormones. What do you mean by that? Okay, when your body is in the stage of some stress or you've seen something which is putting you into high BP, like this generally happens when you're seeing some ghost movie which has the extent of thrilling scene there. Okay, you can feel that your heartbeat is increasing, you're sweating, there is piloerection. Piloerection is nothing but you get this goosebumps, all your hairs on your hand, it just stands up. Okay, and sometimes you feel, it becomes nauseatic also after some time if you're having too much of BP. That means you're watching something, you're into a stress stage, or if you're running from from the chase of a robber. So these all things happen. So in the movies, as I was saying, when the hero is in much more excitement, when he wants to hit up the opponent gundas, if you say, the animation what they show, the movie people, is they directly zoom the face of the hero and they get inside the heartbeat, and it shows when his anger is increasing, he's onto the stress mode, the heartbeat increases. So the hormone which is bringing this scene is nothing but adrenaline or noradrenaline. Okay, so that is why they are called as the emergency hormones. What are their function is they get alertness as the response of stress. Okay, I'll just write the short form here. Alertness, as I said, piloerection, it's nothing but your goosebumps what you experience, and the hairs on your legs or hand just stands up like a needle. Then you also have pupillary dilation. There's a lot of dilation into your pupils. That's why it's called as pupillary dilation. Then you're going to sweat more, you start sweating. The most important thing, I'll put in a different color, is increase in your heartbeat. So this is what these hormones do. Okay, so why are they doing it is actually when your BP or the blood circulation increases, they're going to control it. Okay, and it's going to be a sign that you're into the stress mode. Fine. So that was adrenal gland hormones which was been secreted by adrenal medulla. As the name says medulla, it's the central part of the adrenal gland as you see here. We are going to talk about the set of hormones which is going to be released by our body adrenal cortex. So previously we said that the group of hormones, the two hormones given by adrenal medulla is called as what? Catecholamines. So the group of hormones which is being secreted by adrenal cortex is going to be called as corticoids. So these are the steroid derivatives. Okay, keep a note again. We are going to discuss in the category of hormones. So these are called as in club name as corticoids. So what are the corticoids means? We have picked up two main corticoids here, that is the steroid hormones. That's nothing but glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids. Glucocorticoids, as the name suggests, it is going to emphasize or it's going to target for the metabolism of glucose in our body. Keep this term named, it is called as gluconeogenesis. Okay, the metabolism of glucose. It will help you keep this, write this term somewhere. We are going to tell the explanation of this term when we are going to talk about pancreas. Okay, the hormone secreted by pancreas. Now, the example of glucocorticoids, one of the main hormone is cortisol. Okay. Many questions come from this hormone cortisol. What is the function of cortisol? Okay, then what are the two types of corticoids released from the adrenal cortex? So keep a note on this. So we talked about glucocorticoids. The example, one of the example, these are band of hormones. So one of the main hormone in that is what we're talking about is cortisol. The second one is mineralocorticoids. As the name suggests, this is going to maintain the water and electrolyte balance in our body. Okay, so that's why it's called as mineralocorticoids. The example for it is aldosterone. Okay, the example for it is aldosterone. Now let's jump into some serious study, serious memorization. What is the specific function of cortisol and aldosterone? Okay, now see, these all hormones are not particularly into one function only. They are all interrelated. Okay, so cortisol, as I said, the important function of it is to maintain the glucose concentration in our body. Let me use the another color. Let's pick up green. Yeah. So maintains glucose concentration in our body. Second thing, balances water and electrolytes. You can say, ma'am, aldosterone is also doing the same thing, no? As I said, these hormones are involved into various activities, various role in our body. So as it is maintaining glucose concentration, it maintains water and electrolytes, the amount also in our body. Maintains cardiovascular system and produces anti-inflammatory responses. Okay, that means to say it is also taking part in our immunity. Okay, then stimulates RBC production. The production of RBC also it stimulates. 5 mega role by one hormone, that is cortisol. Aldosterone, as I said, it is going to maintain the electrolyte balance in our body. So what it is going to do is, it's going to go and target the renal tubules in our kidney. Then it is going to stimulate the absorption of sodium and water and excretion of K, that is potassium and phosphates. Okay, this is what it does in the renal tubule to get a balance between these ions. Then it is also going to maintain the blood pressure, and it is going to maintain the osmotic pressure. Now, aldosterone, as I said, water and electrolyte balance. So, it is obviously going to go to the renal tubule, the kidney. What it is doing, absorption of sodium and water, kicking out the potassium and phosphate. In turn, it is going to maintain the osmotic pressure and also the blood pressure in our body. So, this is the important function of cortisol and aldosterone. These are the hormones of two gradation, that is the two category, glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids, which has been secreted from adrenal cortex. Adrenal cortex secretes steroidal hormone, adrenal medulla secretes the protein derivatives. Okay. Coming to the next gland, that is pancreas. We clearly talked about kidney, that is nothing but the adrenal gland sitting on it. Pancreas, we are going to talk about pancreas. Where does pancreas sit? Now, I just want you to imagine, I have given the picture there, I will explain there also. Pancreas sits just right behind the stomach, something like this. Okay, here is the stomach and here pancreas sits. It sits across the abdomen. Now, one more very much important specific thing which we will be talking about pancreas is it is called as mixed gland. Ma'am, what do you mean by mixed gland here? Now, pancreas is also working as the endocrine gland. Just see here, endocrine gland. That means there are no duct and it is releasing hormones like insulin and glucagon. I'll talk about its role. And being as an exocrine gland, exocrine means the gland which is going to release its secretion through the ducts. So what is it doing there? It is secreting the pancreatic enzymes and bile juice inside the gallbladder. So which is the mixed gland which we are talking about here is pancreas working as endocrine and exocrine gland. As you see the picture, I'll just use the laser pointer here. Okay, now here sits our pancreas just behind the stomach. Okay, so there are the ducts which is extending. This is the gallbladder, it is extending to the gallbladder, and the another duct which is extending to the initial part of small intestine, that's nothing but duodenum. Okay, so there it is going to release the enzyme. What is the role here as an exocrine gland pancreas is doing is it is going to initiate the metabolism of carbohydrates, lipids and proteins. Okay, I've put down in points here the same thing which I've talked, so that will help you out. Okay, as I've said, see behind the stomach, connected via ducts when it is exocrine. So as an exocrine gland, what is it doing? Endocrine gland, what it is doing? Okay, so the emphasis as endocrine gland is it is going to do glucose homeostasis. Homeostasis means something which is in balance. Okay, so it is going to bring the levels of glucose in balance into our body. Let's have a tinge on pancreas, saying the anatomical features. So pancreas is made up of pancreatic tissue, but there is certain set of cells which is playing a mega role in our body in maintaining our glucose level is called as islet of Langerhans. Okay, this is not called as islet, it is pronounced as islet of Langerhans. So these cells are only about 1 to 2% of pancreas, but look at its role, it's like really doing a great job. So it is actually of two major types. There's one more type also I'll be talking about. So let's make this as 3. Okay. The 3 major types of cells in the islet of Langerhans tissue is called as alpha, beta and gamma. Alpha cells are going to release the hormone called as glucagon. Beta cell is going to release the hormone called as insulin, and gamma cell is going to release the hormone called as somatostatin. So do you remember this hormone somatostatin when we talked about the hypothalamus? Yes, somatostatin here is also playing an inhibition role which is going to inhibit the secretion of these two hormones, that is glucose and insulin, okay, when the role is going beyond the imagination level in our body. Fine. Now what is our next role? What is the function of glucagon and insulin? How complementary they're going to work with each other to get the glucose metabolism or glucose level balance in our body. Glucagon, the hormone, okay, I'll just talk in here, I'll brief you what is glucagon doing and insulin doing, then we want to take out the points what I've put here. Glucagon is also called as a hyperglycemic hormone. Okay, hyperglycemia is a condition in our body. The glucagon hormone released by the alpha cells is going to target on hepatocytes. That's nothing but the liver cells. What they are going to do is bring about glycogenolysis, That means breakdown of glycogen to glucose, or gluconeogenesis is the process where there's going to be glucose production, the secretion or the formation of glucose. So why are this hormone doing that is because its emphasis or its role is to increase the glucose level in our body. Okay, when it goes beyond the limit, it becomes as a condition called as hyperglycemia, and that's why this hormone is also called as hyperglycemic hormone. So you may say, ma'am, when glucose is improved in the body, doesn't the cell use it? We have something called as respiration, so cellular respiration. This body glucagon is gonna do one more role here, is it's gonna inhibit the absorption of glucose by the cells. Okay, so that's why it's going to maintain the increased level of glucose in our body. So let's tick off as whatever I said. Let me see if I have missed some point. I said it is a hyperglycemic hormone because when it reaches to, it is the hormone which is going to reach to the hyperglycemic condition. It targets hepatocytes, that's nothing but the liver cell, for what? To initiate glycogenolysis, conversion of glycogen to glucose, and then it is going to bring up a gluconeogenesis. Okay, that's nothing but formation of glucose in the other cells, the other target cells. Then inhibit glucose uptake by cells, and that's how it is increasing the glucose level in our body. So we talked about glucagon. We'll come to the main hormone, the insulin. We must have seen the many diabetic patients out there also in the hospital. They come up for the insulin therapy. Now you have the shotguns, the injections where you can simply inject the insulin into the body. Okay, why is this therapy coming into this picture? Because nowadays people face diabetes to various reasons. Okay, stress can also be one of the reason. The other reason in our body, okay, which could be the prime reason, is the deficiency. The deficient production of insulin can reach to various types of diabetes. Various types of diabetes are there, but the most prominent one which we'll be talking in this class will be diabetes mellitus. Now before we do that, let's read out what's the function of insulin. As I said, insulin is being released by the beta cells. Now what are they gonna do? This glucagon body is increasing glycolysis, glucose in the body like crazy. So what is insulin gonna do as a complement function? It's gonna reduce the glucose production in our body. How is it gonna do is, it's gonna do things completely opposite to whatever glucagon was doing. So it is called as hypoglycemic hormone. This was hyper, this is gonna be hypo, because it's gonna reduce the glucose level in the body. Again, if the glucose level in the body is reduced more than the normal level, people tend to faint, they become unconscious. Okay, that's also a condition called as hypoglycemia, when the glucose in our body becomes too low. Okay, so to reduce the glucose level which has been increased by our glucagon, it is going to stimulate the glucose uptake at cellular level. What it's going to do is, it's going to stimulate the hepatocytes and the adipose tissue, tissue cell, to start grabbing the glucose. Now buddy, now I am there, the inhibition is gone, I am going to stimulate it. That's what insulin does. It is going to revert it off. That's nothing but glycogenesis. We talked here, glycolysis is completely glycogenesis. Okay, I'll just put a dot here. So glycogenolysis was conversion of glycogen to glucose by glucagon, and insulin is going to bring up glycogenesis, that is the conversion of glucose to glycogen, that is to reduce the glucose level in the body. I hope you guys have understood the roles of these two hormones and how complementary they have been acting in in their cases, that is to maintain the glucose level in the body. The entire scene here is to get glucose homeostasis, that's nothing but balance. Well, that was with pancreas. What is pancreas, the location and all, we told that it's mixed gland. Then we went to the anatomy. What are the glands? I mean the hormones produced by the the alpha, beta and gamma. Then we started glucagon and insulin. Let's get into the serious note here, which is the gonads. Okay, gonads is the one which is gonna make people fertile, the male fertile, okay, and the female fertile also, by secreting certain hormones which is gonna bring the maturation of the reproductive structure, and that is how these men and women, that's the different genders, they'll become fertile and they'll come to a stage of undergoing things like, you know, they get up the fertilization, and that is how we increase in number. So testis we have studied. Again we'll talk here what are the hormones secreted by testis. Testis is called as male gonad. It is located, okay, just outside the abdomen. You know the reason why it is placed outside the abdomen is because the sperms which are released, you also know the story about this, the sperms released is not going to tolerate the temperature of human body. It undergoes denaturation. So that's why, to keep it in a proper temperature, the scrotum lies outside the abdomen. There is a pair of testes which is placed in each of the scrotum sac outside the abdomen. That's what we are talking about in the location. Okay. Importance of testis. Testis works as a primary sex organ and also as an endocrine gland. Our body ovaries also does the same thing. Ovaries also works as the primary female sex organ and also as the endocrine gland. Ma'am, we know it is called as endocrine glands, testis and the ovaries. Why are they called as primary male sex organ and here the primary female sex organ? That's nothing but the ovary. Because when the infant is born, these are the structures which are going to help us differentiate the sexes. Okay. And one more thing is, as the primary sex as the primary sex organ, it releases the primary sex hormone, the main hormone, that is testosterone. Okay, so that is why does it act as primary sex organ is because it is present from the time the infant is born, that's the boy will be born. Okay, it's going to help us in sex differentiation. Okay, and they also produce the primary sex hormone, that is testosterone. Okay, and they are called as endocrine glands because they are going to secrete a set of hormone. See, testosterone is not only the hormone, there is a class of hormone which is going to be produced by the testis which is called as androgens. Okay, so testis is one of the androgen. What is androgen going to do as the as the endocrine gland secretes it as androgenous? It's going to initiate the secondary sexual character in a male individual. What's that? What does it do? Okay, we'll read up as we go, but I have pasted a picture here. It may look complicated, but we are just going to discuss about two structures here. Testis is made up of a mass of seminiferous tubules. You see here? Okay. So it is completely convoluted. There is a mass of seminiferous tubule. Okay. Super coiled inside the testis, and there are specific interstitial cells. These are also called as Leydig cells, which is present outside this tubule. I'll show you how it is present is. Okay, when you take a cross section of this, let me just draw it properly. Okay, let's take a cross section of this and draw it properly. Okay, find the seminiferous tubule. There's gonna be many cells inside this. Okay, we are not bothered about the anatomy which is there inside the seminiferous tubule, so use the different color. So there'll be some numerous cells outside this, okay, the seminiferous tubule. These are called as the Leydig cells or the interstitial cells also, you can talk about it. Leydig cells are the ones which are gonna release this class of hormones called as androgens, where testosterone is one of the androgen. Okay, that's why it is also called as the primary sex hormone. So this is the structure, and we have noted down only with seminiferous tubule and the Leydig cells. Okay, so you must know that which are the cells which is releasing this hormone. So that is why these cells are releasing the hormone which is getting inside the blood. Okay, so that is why it becomes a endocrine gland in this scene if we see. Cool. Function, that's what as I told, Leydig or interstitial cell. Interstitial, that means something which is in between. So these cells are sitting in between the loops of seminiferous tubule and produces androgens, the class of male hormones, mainly the testosterone. There is one more hormone in this class also, that will be called as DHEA. I think you keep hearing this. Okay, you keep hearing this in some of the advertisements or some of the journals, the scientific research paper, if you are studying deeply about what are the roles of these hormones. DHEA, okay, it is called as, it's just a piece of extra information, dihydroxy androsterone. Okay, so this is another class, another hormone into the class of androgens, which is also going to function to get into the secondary sexual characters of male and also the maturation and development of testis. Okay, it's not only testosterone. Testosterone is doing the major job, and we have the other examples of the androgens also. I gave you this example because people just think that androgen means it's only testosterone. Androgen is a class and testosterone is the one of the example of it. So what does androgen do? The class of hormones, as I said, one of it is DHEA, also is maturation of testis. That's nothing but when the male is entering the puberty age, there will be development, growth and increase in size of the testis. Okay, and development of accessory organs. Let's go to the previous slide for this. What are the accessory organs? Okay, they can be epididymis, vas deferens. Okay, then we also have this prostate gland. Okay, these are all the accessory, the parts of testis. So what is androgen going to do is development of that accessory organs, the organal part, if you can say, of testis. Stimulates secondary sexual character in a male. That means a sign off or a takeoff to see that the male has entered the puberty, that's the pubic period. What are all the changes do you see in a male when these hormones are on to the action is growth, or there's going to be the lower pitch of the Adam's apple, what you say, the pitch of the voice box, it will be the lower pitch. Okay, as I've put the diagram here, we'll keep ticking down that what's been happening within the changes you see in a male. Okay, so growth of larynx and a deeper voice, it's going to be a low pitch. Then you have the facial body, you get this dadi and all. Okay, you have the facial hair and the body hair, you get the hairs under the armpit. These are going to be the changes in development of the hairs if you see in a specific region. Then there's going to be development of muscle mass. Okay, they start putting a lot of muscular mass, that's what you said as masculinity. Okay, there's a lot of muscles. Then the external genitalia development, that is the testis development. This is called as the set of secondary sexual characters development, which is brought by our androgen. Okay, so what does it do is, one more thing what it is going to do is initiate libido. So libido is nothing but the sexual desire within a male. So it is going to act on the central nervous system and stimulate libido also. So that's why it is called as influencing male sexual behavior. It influences male sexual behavior. That's what androgens do. So what and all androgens do is maturation of testes, the main part, then initiation or enhancing libido into the central nervous system, then stimulate secondary sexual characters. We put down some points like what and all can be the secondary sexual characters, and most importantly development of the accessory, the parts of the testis. We are done with the male now. We'll get into the female gonad. That's nothing but the ovary. As we said, the same thing for the testis. Ovary is also taking part as a primary female sex organ and also as an endocrine gland. Now we generally put up with this thing like the women, when she gets inside puberty, that's when is set off of menstruation cycle. I'll just give you a picture that how does it happen, not very deep, so that you understand, okay, why these hormones are released. When there's going to be set of menstruation cycle, there's going to be maturation of ovary. You see it in the picture. I've put the ovary there. It is placed right in the abdomen. So this is the ovary which I have been highlighting. So when there is maturation of ovary, it releases one egg in each menstrual cycle, egg or the ovum. So the ovum which has been released, it waits for the sperms. That means it waits for the fertilization period. So once it gets fertilization, it's going to get converted to zygote. So when the ovary is released, the ovum is released, the hormones are already there in the body of a female as nothing but the estrogen and progesterone. These are the other class of steroid hormone, the steroid derivative. Okay, the estrogen and progesterone are already there, and when the ovum is released, the concentration of estrogen increases. Okay, so when the ovum is released, there is no fertilization taking place. Okay, this leads to onset of menstruation. That's nothing but breakdown of endometrium. The hormone which is maintaining the endometrium status, okay, is the progesterone. Now when there is no fertilization happening, the ovum along with the endometrium breaks down. So that is the period where the concentration of progesterone goes down. Okay, progesterone is a hormone released by corpus luteum. That's nothing but the remnants of the ovum. When the ovum is released from the ovary, there are some structures which is left behind. That's the corpus luteum. Corpus luteum is going to release the progesterone, thinking that ovum is released, there's going to be fertilization and there's going to be zygote implantation to the endometrium, and this is going to set off pregnancy. If there is no pregnancy, what happens? Corpus luteum disintegrates, okay, and the level of progesterone decreases. When the level of progesterone decreases, which is going to maintain the endometrium, there is going to be our menstruation cycle. That is the breakdown of the endometrium along with the ovum. Okay, I think that was a clear picture with why does menstruation happen in a female. Okay, so location of the ovary there are pairs of ovary in the abdomen. Okay, it's located in the abdomen, the pelvic region. The pelvic region becomes swollen as the secondary sexual character of female. Okay, that is because how she gets inside puberty. These are the changes. We'll talk about it. We were talking actually where is ovaries. Ovaries present in the abdomen. Okay, so what are the function of the ovaries is, ovaries are made up of ovarian follicle and stromal tissue. So these ovarian follicle are gonna do a tedious job to release the ovum when biologically the female has been clicked to say that she can enter puberty. So it releases two steroidal hormones, okay, as I told you, estrogen and progesterone. Okay, these are the two steroidal hormones released, we'll now see what are the functions of this estrogen and progesterone released by the ovary. Estrogen, like androgen, is gonna initiate the secondary sexual character in a female individual, okay, and stimulate female sexual behavior, something like a libido in male. It is gonna initiate the female sexual behavior. That is what estrogen is doing. So what and all can be the secondary sexual character in a female is, okay, maturation of breasts, that's nothing but enlargement of breasts. Then you have broader hips, that's what I told you, the pelvic area becomes larger in its diameter. Then there is production of or the growth of pubic hair in the genital area and also under the armpit, okay. So this, and one more thing is the deeper voice pitch in the larynx, the deeper voice pitch. The pitch here is going to be high, whereas in males it is low, okay. So maturation of breasts, broader hips, pubic hair, then higher pitch in the voice. So these are the two hormones of ovary. In specificity, if we talk as the endocrine, the hormones of ovary. So we talked about adrenal gland, which is present on the kidney. Then we were discussing about pancreas also, how it is going to maintain the glucose level in the body. Then when we shift to the gonads, that's nothing but the testis in male and ovary in female, we are done talking about all the endocrine glands, okay. You see the way that how they are interconnected, okay. So the action of these hormones, especially the gonads, is going to take place. They are present, but the hormones in action comes only at the time of puberty, okay. Now, and the other glands also which we talk, these are all not going to work like a single stage. They're going to be multiple connection with all these glands, okay. They have been working interconnected. So that's why when one also becomes abnormal or malfunctioned, it is going to hit the complete metabolic activity in the body. So now we come to the task of talking about the organs, okay, which are not endocrine glands. What do you mean by that is, these are the organs which release hormones, but they are not called as endocrine glands. What are these, okay, organs? We'll talk about it, and what are the hormones they are releasing, along with the function also we will talk, okay. So first one is heart. Heart releases, the atrial wall of heart releases a hormone which is called as atrial natriuretic, I'll make this as uretic hormone. What is the function of this specific hormone, okay? It's also called as factor. The F is the factor. I'm just taking a highlighter, 1 second. So it is called as atrial natriuretic factor, okay. So what does it do is, it reduces or lowers the blood pressure, okay. It has been secreted by the atrial wall, and when there is some condition where the BP, the blood pressure raises, this factor helps in lowering down the blood pressure in the the entire body, okay. But it is produced by the atrial wall of the heart. Now the next non-endocrine gland, the non-endocrine organ also you can say it, is GIT. GIT is nothing but gastrointestinal tract. Okay. Now there are 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 major, the factors or the hormones are releasing is, one is gastrin. As the name suggests, it is gonna initiate the production of gastric juices in the stomach and going to balance the levels of HCl in the stomach. Okay. Next one is secretin. Secretin is going to balance the water and electrolyte level in the body by targeting exocrine pancreas. Okay. Next one is CCK. CCK is nothing but cholecystokinin. Okay. What does cholecystokinin do is gonna initiate, it's gonna stimulate or maintain the secretions from gallbladder and pancreas. Okay, we all know gallbladder, the story of the bile juice, pancreas with pancreas enzymes. Okay, that we have studied in the digestion chapter. So the secretions from these two is been maintained by cholecystokinin. The next one is gastric inhibitory peptide. So gastric inhibitory peptide is going to completely inhibit, okay, the production of gastric juices. If it is going beyond a level, again it's going to lead to some other disorders in the stomach. So this is like a stop point. Okay, so gastric inhibitory peptide is going to inhibit the production of gastric juices when they are, produced more than the level required. Then come to kidney. So that is heart, GIT and kidney. Kidney secretes erythropoietin. Erythro means something related to blood. Okay. So this is going to initiate erythropoiesis. That means formation of RBC in our cell. As I said, erythro means blood, something which is related to blood. So it is gonna initiate to something called as erythropoiesis. That is the RBC production in our body. Okay. So look at this. Other than the endocrine glands also, there are some other organs also helping out to secrete these hormones, okay, and also do specific roles in our body. What is this called as? RBC formation. This may look very small. When you read it once, it will be like, yes, this is very simple, I've understood it. But I'm very pretty sure that after 1 hour you can forget it also. Because as I said, this is a memory based chapter. It is very important for you to keep brushing up the names of the glands, the functions especially of each gland and each hormone. If you keep in touch of it, it will get memorized, and you'll also start appreciating, first thing, appreciating the functions of these glands and maintaining, look at the function, they are humongous. The functions, what they are doing, we are just reading the main function what they are doing, but when we get into the detailed study of these, all the endocrine glands, they have been doing a marvelous kind of job of various functions they have been doing in the human body. Okay, so now we studied this non-endocrine gland, heart, GIT and kidney. We'll get into mechanism of hormone action. Ma'am, the hormones are released, they are into the blood. Now how are they going to reach the target cell? We all know the story about receptors, okay, the receptors on the cell membrane or the receptor being inside the cell. Mostly they are, the nuclear receptors. These receptors in specific are going to bind to only specific hormone. So hormone maintains a lot of specificity here. If you remember, as we started the classes, we said is hormone are highly potent. So that's why they have been released in the trace amount. Here comes in the specificity also, because they want to hit to the specific target cell. Here comes how do they do? How is the mechanism of action is hormone reaches the target cell. Okay, they either bind with the receptor which is present on the cell membrane, that is called as membrane bound receptor. I'll write it here, but I'll just explain it. Membrane bound receptor, the one kind of receptors where the hormones are going to bind them, okay, and then it is going to initiate for the changes of physiological response from the mass of the cell, and that's how you see the changes. We'll talk about it, what are all the kind of hormones which actually goes and binds to the receptor which is present only on the cell membrane. There are another set of hormones which is going to go bind intracellular, these to the receptors. So these receptor here are called as intracellular receptor. As I said, mostly these are nuclear receptors. The hormones are going to enter the cell or give the command to the cell by bringing in regulation of the genome expression. That's nothing but they're going to talk to the DNA. Okay, so the DNA on transcription and translation gets out that protein, and that protein is going to bring up the specific change what the hormone wants it to do. Okay, so as I said, let's draw it. I was saying, so hormone binds specific receptors of target cell and it forms something called as hormone receptor complex. So once this complex is formed, there's going to be a tedious change with what the functioning of the cell, the target cell, has to do. Receptors can be of two types: membrane bound receptors, intracellular receptors. Membrane bound receptors are going to work out with certain secondary messengers. Let me just draw here. Okay, think this is a membrane and this is a receptor. This is a receptor. There comes a hormone which is going to sit rightly to it. Okay, now this hormone is a class of hormone which is going to get attached to only the receptors which are present on the membrane. So what has happened here is there's going to be some messengers who are going to take the response that the hormone has come. Who is going to do it is actually called as the secondary messengers. I'll just put it as secondary. These can be cyclic AMP or sometimes the calcium ions also. Not to get inside the details of it, we'll just know what are the secondary messengers which can take the response. Next, after this, there's got to be biochemical response in the cell. Okay, this specific biochemical response is going to get the physiological response. Okay, now let's just think that this hormone was given in the textbook. Okay, this hormone is FSH, the follicle stimulating hormone, and the membrane here is the ovarian wall. What is going to be the change is nothing but maturation of the ovary. That's nothing but the physiological response. That's nothing but the changes, the maturation in the ovary of the female. Okay, so the class of hormones which are going to attach with the membrane bound receptors are the class of protein hormones. So one of it, the example which we talked was FSH. It can be any other protein hormone also which is going to cling to the receptor sitting on the membrane. And the next one which we are going to talk here is the intracellular receptor. Now think this is a membrane. Okay, as the intracellular, we said it's going to talk to the nucleus. The chromatin, that's nothing but the DNA, the entire genome. Okay, let me just put it here. This is just for your understanding. Okay. So there comes a hormone again here. Okay, it's going to give the command to the nucleus by entering the cell. Okay, entering the cell in the sense there are various steps in between which is taking place, and it's going to give the command to the genome to transcribe the mRNA, the required mRNA. Okay, the specific mRNA which is going to translate to a specific protein. This is on transcription, and on translation it is going to produce a protein. This protein is going to bring about the exact physiological change what the hormone wants it to do is. Okay, that is what this protein is going to get. But let's imagine this hormone, the class of hormone which is going to go through intracellular receptors are nothing but the steroid hormones. Your steroid hormones are all the sex hormones, the testosterone, estrogen and progesterone. Let's just think this is one of the sex hormone. Let's think it is estrogen. Okay. Okay. So when estrogen wants ovarian maturation, the maturation of ovary. So once the protein is released, this is going to lead to the differentiation or the maturation of the cell in the ovary. Okay. So this is just the overall look that how these two categories of hormones are working. So this was the mechanism of hormone action. Coming to the climax, I would not say that we have hit up the climax actually. Next I'm going to summarize what we studied in these two classes is the chemical nature of hormones. I told you keep noting it wherever I say steroid derivative, protein derivative and all. So there are four broadband categories of hormone, which is the peptide protein polypeptide derivative, that is the first one. Second one is steroid derivative. Third one is iodothyronins. Okay, iodothyronins, the thyroid hormones. Then 4 is amino acid derivative. So here the peptide or protein or polypeptide derivative is gonna be all your protein hormones, your insulin, your glucagon, all the hypothalamic hormones. Okay, let's put an etc here. Okay, there are many such hormones when we come into the list. It's gonna be the etc here. Then steroid derivative, the steroid hormones, all your sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone also comes into the picture. Okay, let me just put an etc here. Iodothyronins are completely the thyroid hormones. Okay, your T3, T4, all this kind of hormones are nothing but the thyroid hormones. Then the amino acid derivative, we talked about the hormone which has been secreted by the adrenal medulla, the adrenaline. Okay, it is also called as epinephrine. So epinephrine is going to be the amino acid derivative. So these are the 4 classes of the hormones. Please remember the examples of it because this is one of the important questions which will be asked in your board exams also. So let's summarize. What did we study? We introduced hormones, we studied what is the importance of endocrine system even in place of nervous system, and also the types of endocrine glands. Today's class we studied about adrenal gland, pancreas, the gonads, the testis, ovary. Then we studied the non-endocrine glands also. Then we little bit touched upon, not completely, we touched about the mechanism of hormone action and the 4 broadband kind of the hormones. Okay, kids. So what is the basic thing that you have to keep while learning this chapter is to memorize and to understand what is the function and the specific hormone each gland is producing out. Okay, as I said, keep a pen and a paper, keep writing it. Okay, if you get some time, also keep looking onto that paper and keep analyzing that why is this hormone released by this gland, so that you memorize each set of concepts which is given in NCERT, and you start appreciating that how these glands in a coordinated way are getting out these many kind of functions for the human sustenance. Okay. Yes guys, we are done with this chapter, and I would ask all the passport users to answer our CPP question done in NEET perspective. Any issues, please do come back through the comments. We will be very happy to help you out. All the very best.